All right, we're going to jump straight into it because we've got a jam-packed agenda. So to begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining from Wajak Noongar Boodja here in beautiful Perth, Western Australia. Um, I have my desk orientated. If I like about a couple of Ks straight in front of me is Derbil Nara, so Coburn Sound, and the creation story is of a dingo and a crocodile wrestling. And as they wrestled, they kind of created the trenches in the sound, and the dingo bit the crocodile's tail off, and the tail landed and became what we know as Garden Island. And this beautiful sand cliffs of Garden Island you can think of as like the white crocodile flesh exposed where the dingo's bitten off the crocodile's tail. So I love sitting here and just thinking about that, and it helps me to remember that my life, our lives are just a blip in all of time. And that brings me to acknowledge First Nations peoples, cultures, their communities, and their elders, past, present, and future, and the fact that they've been harnessing this knowledge really since the beginning of time, particularly in our work in this understanding and trying to conceive of well-being and how we actually work towards that. Indigenous ways of being and knowing recognize that an individual's well-being can't be disconnected from our community, from our family. We're all connected, and we're all connected through all of time. Um, and I guess my final point on that is that I acknowledge their grace and their strength, as a lot of our like modern science and economics and governance, sorry, really catches up to this way of thinking. And I can't imagine what it feels like when there's these new discoveries or thought leadership published that really represent just a tiny step towards this incredible, sophisticated understanding of our interconnectedness. So may we stay humble and open to learning. And on that note, let's get into it. So welcome everyone. Dan and I, as co-conveners of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance Australia Hub, are coming to you today to talk about Business 101. So our outcome for today's session is absolutely for you to understand what a wellbeing economy is, the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, and all the key concepts, but in particular a focus on the value of that for business and how businesses can really be part of bringing this change on. We recognise that many people on the call are already in organisations that are really active in this space. So we've made space about halfway through to hear from you. We'd love to hear direct examples of how you're working towards this. So please be ready to contribute, even just in the chat, and we might call on you to expand on that. But before we get in, Dan and I will just introduce ourselves and explain sort of the street cred that gives us, that brings us here today to talk to you. So Dan, I might pass over to you, please.
Thank you, Georgie, and what a wonderful acknowledgement of country. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Leverington. As Georgie said, I'm one of the co-conveners of the Wellbeing Economy Alliance Australia. I'm also the managing director of the Uccelli Group, where we focus within sustainability, ESG, and natural capital, pulling together corporations with sustainability partners. I'm very fortunate in that I've managed to live and work in the US, the UK, and live in South Africa as well as Australia. So I think that's been quite formative in me having a pretty good understanding of just how much commonality we share around the world, and how important it is for us to all to work together, to bring our strengths in order to create the economy that works best for all. Georgie, back to you.
Thanks, Jan. So I'm Georgie Camp. I'm one of the co-founders of Huber Social. So Huber Social, we're a social enterprise research group with a focus on measuring well-being. We work with across the private sector, public sector, and social sector globally. So we work in more than 10 countries. and we establish measurement systems either to evaluate the effectiveness of a project or an intervention, or indeed community wellbeing measurement systems. My background that brought me to focus on wellbeing measurement, I started as a baby lawyer, but I was also a military officer, so both very pointy end of social problem solving. And after a lot of soul searching, I thought, oh, I want to try and be part of solving social issues at their root cause, if there is such a thing. So I somewhat naively went into development and studied my Masters of Development, worked with not-for-profits and NGOs, and was quickly heartbroken and frustrated to recognize that, of course, we're often there just putting a band-aid on a much bigger systemic problem. And long story short, that led me to recognize that measurement can be this great conductor of social change to get all parts of the system working together, to help people and planet thrive. So, on that note, the agenda for today. So we'll introduce some of these core concepts and talk about really the pressures that business is facing currently, and then the value of WEAll for business, and then also talk about what is a wellbeing economy, the principles, and offer some case studies, and touch on how regulation is actually helping us close this gap. And then, of course, what next and opportunities to contribute and to join us. And we'll round out with just a little provocation. So over to you, Dan.
Excellent. Thanks. So I thought it would be a good place to start for us just to reflect on the sheer pace of change that we've experienced over the last few years. Every single one of us is trying to navigate a business landscape that feels fundamentally different to the one that we've been trained to operate in. We're living through an era defined by compounding volatility. It's reshaping our world at a pace that outstrips traditional planning tools and is actively challenging business as usual. I think it's helpful if we consider the macro environment first and then come down to the micro. So, what is officially now the worst energy crisis in history is leading to rapid geopolitical realignments. This is happening on top of the erosion of international norms, widening inequality, escalating climate events, the spread of misinformation, and large populism movements across Western democracies. And all of this is underpinned by the rapid, unpredictable acceleration of AI, which brings both incredible promise and profound disruption to every industry represented on today's call. Unfortunately, these aren't just distant macroeconomic headlines. They're also in our offices every day. We are facing a seemingly intractable housing crisis, urgent climate and biodiversity emergencies, and legacy business models that too often concentrate wealth while exploiting people and nature. And we are seeing the human cost: growing wealth inequalities, widespread financial stress, and the silent crises of mental health, burnout, loneliness, and a deep, urgent search for meaning amongst our workforce. It's no wonder that it can feel incredibly overwhelming for those systems thinkers amongst us. And I'm going to take a stab in the dark that is a lot of people on this call. For business leaders in this environment, decision making becomes harder just as the stakes become exponentially higher. Linear logic models, 5-year strategic plans, and siloed data sets simply can't keep up with the complexity, entanglement, and unpredictability of modern crises. The spreadsheets that used to give us comfort are now giving us blind spots. When uncertainty rises, the standard corporate reflex is to contract. Business leaders want to cut costs, narrow their focus, hunker down, and wait for the storm to pass. But we don't believe that this storm is going to be passing. And this is precisely when clarity matters most. We can't solve the modern polycrisis with outdated single bottom line thinking. To build genuine resilience and ensure long-term viability in a volatile world, we need to do more than pivot. We need to rethink the operating system itself. We need a model designed for both human and planetary regeneration, and we believe that this model is the wellbeing economy.
Thank you, Dan. So, how can WEAll, a wellbeing economy way of thinking, add value for business, particularly in the current climate that we find ourselves. So simply put, overall, this wellbeing approach offers a roadmap. It helps to bring clarity to this crisis. It recognizes the interconnectedness of all these factors, and the complexity. Um, and and understanding that interconnectedness is really critical to inform sustainable business performance. But really practically, what does we all offer businesses are different tools. So firstly, a vision. So it really captures and articulates that there is a better way of operating and makes that really clear. And it aligns all of us on that vision. It offers principles to help guide the way we operate and bring about this change. And we'll walk through those principles with some case studies shortly. It offers a community of like-minded people. So an incredible reservoir of learning and energy to tap into if you're working towards this. It offers models and case studies of how we can do this and how businesses can set themselves up to be part of this transition. And it offers better ways to measure performance. So, how do we actually measure well-being to truly understand social environment performance and use that to inform our strategic decision making? So, within this, what is the Wellbeing Economy Alliance? It's, if you haven't come across it already, and I should just pay my respects to Catherine Trebek, who I think's on the call. I can't see everyone. Wonderful. Thanks, Maria, for nodding. Who is one of the incredible co-founders of this movement that started in 2018. And so it's made up of all these local hubs around the world. And I hope this slide's up to date. I took it off the website, but I know we're growing and growing fast. We've got incredible global ambassadors, and there's also WeGo, which is made up of governments around the world that have signed up to be part of this change. But it's and within that, the focus of the efforts are around strengthening and supporting, co-creating knowledge, and changing cultural narratives. Really, what I think it offers all of us on this call and anyone that aligns to that vision is this incredible reservoir of resources and energy to tap into. So we're all, as Dan said, probably we're all on this call systems thinking. So we're out there kind of tapping away, trying to create this change, and that is really exhausting. And WEAll offers a place where people are all aligned on that goal and come together and say, we can be greater than the sum of our parts if we pull together. And as Catherine always says, it's this beautiful, comfy couch. So when you need to come back in, connect with people that get it and recharge, that's what WEAll really offers us and everyone that's working towards that.
So, I figured before we jump into what a well-being economy is, it may be worth asking ourselves a very basic question, which is, what is an actual economy? We hear the word every day on the news, we measure it, we track it, we worry about its fluctuations. But stripped down to its core, the economy is just a word for how we go about meeting each other's needs. It's our collective system of decision-making and provisioning. In fact, economy comes from the ancient Greek words for stewardship of a household. I think it's worth thinking about that for a second. The original definition of the economy wasn't endless exponential growth or wealth extraction. It was stewardship, the careful, responsible management of our shared home. A well-being economy is simply an economy that remembers its original definition. It is a system designed to meet the needs of people on the planet rather than demanding that people on the planet sacrifice themselves to serve the economy. Because of this, it is built on a foundation of 5 core needs. And for the businesses represented here today, these are the pillars for long-term viability. Firstly, dignity. This means ensuring everyone has enough to live in comfort, safety, and happiness. In a business context, it means paying true living wages and creating cultures of psychological safety, which at its core is simply creating the conditions for people to operate at their best. Second, nature. We must recognize that humans and businesses are a part of nature, not separate from it. It requires moving our operations from extractive supply chains to regenerative ones by giving back as much as we take, in the process, mitigating risks that our businesses currently experience along their supply chains. For purpose, our public and private institutions must serve the common good, creating genuine, holistic value rather than chasing short-term results. And fourth, fairness. In terms of justice, it must sit at the heart of the system, and this means actively addressing the widening wealth gaps and ensuring equitable opportunities across our entire business and value chains, which is for both inside our organisations but also across society. And then finally, participation. Citizens, customers, and employees must be actively engaged in the decisions that affect their lives and livelihoods. Georgie, myself, and the WEAll Australia community are not being idealistic. We are in fact seeing leaders at the highest levels recognise that the old rules no longer apply. This is not too different from the point Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made during his recent speech at Davos earlier in the year. Speaking about the volatile global landscape and the importance of strategic positioning, he warned, "Middle powers must act together, because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu." The exact same logic applies to the future of business. If we are not actively at the table, redesigning our models and co-creating this well-being economy, we will find our businesses on the menu, consumed by the very volatility we are discussing today. But then what does this mean for business? If you want to go to the next slide, Georgina. So these 5 core needs, the dignity, nature, purpose, fairness, and participation, they really do sound fantastic in theory. But what does this mean for the day-to-day realities of running a complex enterprise? You're juggling internal and external stakeholders who often expect different outcomes from you at the same time. To bring this out of the theoretical and into the highly practical, we use the 4 Ps. These 4 pillars translate those high-level well-being needs into genuine operational business resilience. This is critical right now because traditional externalities like climate change impacts, social instability, and resource depletion are rapidly coming directly onto balance sheets. In terms of purpose, in a well-being economy, the overarching purpose of the economy fundamentally shifts. It moves away from the singular pursuit of financial wealth and shifts to exclusively delivering human and ecological well-being. For your organisation, this could mean redefining what value actually means. It requires adopting a wider, more rigorous range of success metrics that look far beyond just financial profit, quarterly earnings, or national GDP. It asks businesses to align their core business models with solving the world's problems rather than creating them. When your core purpose is grounded in real-world well-being, your business builds profound loyalty, attracts top-tier talent who care about meaning, and secures a lasting social license to operate in a skeptical market. When we think about prevention, think about how much time, capital, and PR effort businesses spend trying to fix the harm that they're doing downstream. Cleaning up waste, managing public backlash, paying fines, or retrofitting outdated infrastructure. A well-being economy demands that we adopt preventative measures upstream. In a corporate context, this means shifting decisively towards circular production and consumption models. It is about designing waste and exploitation out of the system entirely, stopping harm from happening in the first place. It significantly de-risks your business model against future economic shocks and regulatory crackdowns, and has a net positive impact on the environment. Historically, our economic models have relied heavily on redistribution. We let the market generate massive inequalities, and then we try to fix those gaps downstream through corporate charity, philanthropy, or limited taxation. Pre-distribution actually flips this entirely. Instead of relying on charity after the fact, we pre-distribute power and wealth within the economy as it is created. For a business, this looks like paying true living wages from day one, not just legal minimums. It looks like adopting worker-owned cooperative models or profit-sharing mechanisms, or it means actively engaging in community wealth building by sourcing from local, marginalised, or regenerative suppliers. You are building equity into the very DNA of your operations, in the process strengthening the ties that bind. And finally, people powered. An economy that works for everyone must be built by everyone. Economic decisions can no longer be made in the top floor bedroom, sorry, in the top floor boardrooms. To be truly effective, they must be powered by the people they impact. In practical terms, this means actively involving your workers, your stakeholders, and your local communities directly in your decision making and agenda setting processes. Doing so creates deep, stress tested strategy. It uncovers blind spots you didn't know you had, it generates significantly more internal buy in, and it builds a profoundly more committed support base. When volatility hits, a people powered business has the collective resilience to weather the storm because they have a higher purpose, they believe in each other, and they are bought in to creating success in the face of severe adversity. This is why we believe this is the new operating system for any business that intends to thrive in the decades ahead, and we're excited to share with you some businesses that are already walking the talk. Georgie, over to you.
Thank you, Dan. So, our first case study, looking at that value of purpose, I get to speak about Indigenous Business Australia, and we have them joining on the call, Justin Vaughan. So, Justin, you have free rein to kind of jump in and correct anything I don't do justice. But IBA, we started working with them. We, as in Huber Social, a couple of years ago, they came to us saying they wanted to embed impact into the business of IBA. So, what that actually looked like was getting really clear on the purpose of IBA. Lucky for IBA, they're a statutory agency, so that's quite clearly articulated in the Act. But still, even with that, I think there was quite a bit of disparity on the shared understanding of what that really meant. But written into the Act, the clear purpose of IBA, something along the lines of really the economic empowerment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sorry, I'm not quoting that word for word, I know, Justin. But really helpful within the preamble was an explanation that yes, that's the focus of IBA, but the ultimate goal is to contribute to the overall well-being of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So once that was really clear, it was about going around and building, okay, well, if that's the purpose, how do we measure we're achieving that? And that was about defining the outcomes that IBA wanted to target to contribute to that change. Once that was agreed, it was then a negotiation with government and Department of Finance to change the performance measures of the organisation. So when we started working with them, just I think it was around 45 very output focused measures around what IBA was putting into Indigenous economies in terms of giving out business loans and other things. It was output activity driven, and instead being able to offer these are outcome focused measures. Department of Finance accepted that change, and the overall measure of success being on the experience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, or their subjective well-being, how they experience life, and different outcomes relevant to financial well-being of how IBA is contributing to that. And the overall performance measures went something from like 45 to about 17. And that sort of case study offers something that lots of organisations can adopt, both in that well-being approach, so having that holistic understanding of needs and aspirations of the people you serve, but also moving from that output focused performance measures to outcome impact focus, which gives you a lot more flexibility and agility in how you actually achieve that, and helps to really inform that strategic decision making. So I hope I did that justice, Justin, and please jump in maybe when we open up if you want to add to that. Okay, prevention.
Tony's chocolate only. So we thought this was a really good example because um, it's such a good insight into the fact that first and foremost, your product or service has to be great. And with Tony's, the chocolate's delicious. And so the product or the service has to be really high quality in order to generate long-term success. The great thing about it, though, is that it's not just delicious. So they have a strategic roadmap to achieve a goal of 100% slave-free chocolate production. Now, they have on that roadmap, there's three pillars, which is creating awareness, leading by example, and inspiring others to act. These three pillars then form the measurable impact of the business. which they also report under the Global Reporting Initiative guidelines. And within that, they have 13 metrics, which they combine with the three pillars to track their impact and success. They've actually just released their latest metric, which is tied to inspiring others to act, which is called Tony's Open Chain. And that's an open source platform where chocolate companies can access the necessary knowledge and tools to improve their own supply chain when it comes to ensuring equitable and employment practices. Tony's actually gone on the record and he said, on its own, a certification label does not enable farmers to live above the poverty line and provide a decent income for their families. The way we see it, chocolate makers are responsible for their chocolate supply chain, not the certification inspector. And we thought that, in light of Tony's focus on the chocolate supply chain, that it would be very useful to share a piece published by Ro Coronaeus or about the business case an Australian corporation should be thinking about when it comes to modern slavery. So Ro was asked to create the business case by a client for why they should proactively ensure that they don't have modern slavery in their supply chains. And I really think Ro's framing hits the prevention nail on the head. So they're saying, let's not look at this in a business as usual sense. Let's look at this when the problem is unearthed in the media. And in that situation, the budget definitely exists, but it's currently allocated to responding to crises rather than preventing them, which is a classic downstream solution response. But just if you have a look at these numbers, they're pretty mind-boggling. So and Rowe really emphasized that these were conservative numbers. So if a modern slavery story broke in the media, it could cost up to 27 million to 37 million dollars for the organization that has been found out, and that's across crisis management, that's across compulsory remediation and systems overhaul, that's brand damage, and I think it's just a really good reminder that there are real tangible business benefits of being proactive in looking upstream to ensure that you as an organization are doing everything you possibly can. Georgie, if you want to go to the next one, because Quip is a great Australian company. They're a community management platform for some of Australia's largest brands. And 3 years ago, they brought in the employee share ownership plan, or an ESOP. And I thought it was a really useful example to be thinking about when it comes to pre-distribution, because the ESOPs can take a whole manner of structures, but I thought it would be helpful to take you through QUIPs. So each year, QUIP is valued against an independent methodology that was adopted at the launch of the ESOP. After seeking independent advice, eligible employees can then opt in voluntarily, of course, and purchase a number of units in the business at its current valuation. Those units can only be held by current employees, and if an employee leaves, their share is bought back by Quip at the share valuation at the time of departure. But this means that profit-based returns are then distributed annually to the employees. So Quip's ESOP entitles employees to collectively own up to 30% of the business and sharing in its profits, while employees benefit directly through this ownership. Their influence in the business decisions are tied to their existing roles and positions. And I thought it was really interesting having a look, particularly, Will, who's their client services director, in terms of the way that he framed that for him, the participation is a tangible shared commitment to Quip's success. And as a well-run, profitable business, the returns are very welcome as well. And I think it just goes to show, if you look after your people, if you give them a reason to believe in the organization, they are going to pay that back many, many times over the course of their employment.
Yeah, really strong case studies there. And Joe on the chat has just offered one alongside Tony's Chocolonely. I never know if I say that right, but I love all these great chocolate case studies. A case study on the people value. So Gosh, there are so many incredible mutuals and co-ops out there, and I believe there's a number of people on this call that can really speak to this topic. And I should mention that this webinar we hope is the first in a whole series of business-focused webinars where we're going to expand on a lot of the things we cover here and give them their own presentation, co-ops and mutuals being one. I just picked RACQ because it happened to be on my LinkedIn at the time that we were pulling this together. And they were speaking about the fact that a lot of mutuals are where organizations that are owned by their members and their clients, and the value goes back into their members as opposed to external shareholders. RACQ was speaking about how a lot of mutuals have sort of lost their way and lost their purpose, and to this aim, they have put out a new community impact strategy of different ways they want to engage with the community to inform how they use that profit to create value in the community, but also create new channels for their members to get involved and give back into the community. So a number of them you can see there. And then I just came across this really fun one in the media recently for a whole nother model, so Camp Chateau, where it started with 3 women, but they managed to get 300 to begin with, women that came together and bought a French chateau, and now they run adult summer camps out of it. And you can buy in and become a founding member, and if you invest, that guarantees you a lifetime place on the annual camps, unless you kind of withdraw that investment. And they're growing. They've bought a second chateau. So I think it's just really cool to see what's possible, and that it's available to organisations really big and small as well. So now we would really love to open up and hear. We've already had some great case studies there, but anyone on the call, feel free to just raise your hand if you feel like talking about whether it's your own organisation or some examples of others. We'd love to hear from you guys. So I'll try and keep an eye there if anyone wants to contribute. I know we've got some great people on the call. I can see you. So Tessa, please jump in.
Hi, I'm Tessa. I'm from a values-based consultancy firm called Ethical, and we have actually aligned our whole organisation's vision to the wellbeing economy concept.
Oh.
So a couple of ways we, I guess, follow through on that is we do a lot of co-design work, particularly with vulnerable populations. I'm particularly passionate about rural people having a say in the services that impact them. We also do social impact measurement. So similar to your point, Georgie, around helping organisations actually measure their impact, then they can be guided by that impact much more accurately. I guess things that we do or are trying to get into is the renewable energy space. And up here in Queensland, the legislation's changed and a social impact assessment must be done prior to any renewable energy project. So we're trying to get involved in that and actually working along energy companies that are genuinely wanting to do the right thing by communities, and undertaking that co-design process properly. And something that we've started trialing this year for our own employees is working a 4-day working week. So working 4 days, being paid for 5, in order to give back to the rest of our team's wellbeing and family needs, which is going well so far.
Wow, that's incredible. Please drop a link to your organisation in the chat, because I know I'd love to check it out further, and I'm sure lots of others will.
I might share it when we redo our website, which is just about finished.
Yeah, wonderful. We'll connect with you after. Maybe we might need a whole webinar on that. That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else feel like contributing today?
Yeah, kia ora. I'd love to share a little bit. Oh, it's hands up. Nice.
Oh, you're Sally. How are you?
Good, good. I thought I'd just share. I'm from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance in Aotearoa, so it's amazing to learn from the team and what you're doing across in Australia. We're launching a paper on sort of fashion and textile sector in Aotearoa and what they're doing around circular fashion. So that's what's in my mind at the moment. Businesses like Koto, who are B Corp certified and living wage, and they've only used organic cotton so that everything's compostable. They've set up their own biochar so they can take back. They've got repair systems baked in so that they can, repair and things can last longer. And full kind of supply chain transparency. So that's something that an organisation I'm thinking of at the moment is doing a really good job. We should be launching the report next week if anyone wants to keep an eye out for it online. Yeah, kia ora. Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you. Definitely share that with us when it's published and we'll push it out through our members. That's wonderful. Melina Morrison, please.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Georgie and Dan. I just wanted to thank you for putting on the webinar. I'm from the peak cross-sectoral body for cooperatives and mutuals in Australia, grandly titled the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, but essentially the apex body. And so thank you for talking about co-ops and mutuals. I'm going to handball to my colleague for a specific example. I'm dobbing in Claire Fountain, but I thought I might just add that rather than giving one specific example, just talk about the cooperative and mutual model as a model that is so well aligned with your 4Ps that it maps across the 7 cooperative principles so adeptly that it's it's very sort of clarifying the crossovers. We've got a database on our website of the nearly 1,900 cooperatives and mutuals in Australia, of which 8 in 10 Australians are members of at least one. So it's a very significant part of the economy and the wellbeing economy. And I guess the thing that most sticks out for me is that I guess from a cooperative point of view, because it's a bottom-up model of delivering the intentions and purpose of your wellbeing, your wellbeing framework, it starts from the place that structure is the best way to embed, particularly intergenerationally, purpose. That I guess that's one of the challenges is how you actually make your approach to business stick. And structure, I think, is something that's really important to think about, how well does that embed it? And look forward to the opportunity to provide a deeper dive into this particular business model.
Yes.
But for a great example, Claire Fountain is a worker cooperative. Claire, I'm dobbing you in.
Thanks, Melina. No, I know Di's been talking to you, hasn't she? And we've definitely got plans, if she hasn't already, to invite you. We'd love to give it a whole session that it so deserves. So thanks for adding to my very light touch introduction to mutuals and co-ops. Sorry, Claire, please jump in with an example.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Melina. So there's a couple of examples. So I work through cooperative bonds. So we're a member-owned cooperative. So we're a group of co-op developers who deliver our services through a co-op, which is pretty unusual. But yeah, it works really well for us. So when you have a look at the 4Ps, they're embedded into our rules and policies and how we work. But I think I wanted to give an example of a project that I'm working on through the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, which is the establishment of an aged care shared services cooperative. So that's where 7 aged care providers based in regional New South Wales and Murrumbidgee region have set up a shared services co-op. So they all maintain their small to large aged care residential service providers' locations in their community. So it's very place-based, it's owned by the community. But in order to enhance their efficiency and operational performance, they've set up a shared services co-op. So instead of them individually having to secure services, they'll do that through the co-op that they democratically own and control. So when you have a look at your 4 pillars, it's a beautiful example of that in action.
Amazing. Thank you, Claire.
No
And
worries.
then Joe's been patiently waiting, and we might just have to cut it there, but there will be lots of opportunity for others to contribute in due course. So please, Joe.
Did you want me to speak? Sorry, I thought I can.
Oh,
Okay.
no, yeah, please go. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
making
sure.
time for you, but I'm just saying we'll cut it after that.
It'll
Sorry.
be quick. So I'm from Aotearoa. So I just jumped on to learn about what you're doing in Australia. I work for an organisation called Sustainability Options, and we're a social business for 13 years. And just a couple of things that we set up from the get-go in our constitution is committed to a living wage. So everyone here is receiving a living wage, and it's a bare minimum. So we are receiving more than that. We had a 1-to-4 ratio in our pay scale ratio in our constitution, which we are also committed to, and nowhere near even achieving the 1-to-4, but have no intention to, it's not a target. We're not trying to reach it, but we do have that written into our constitution. And we have also, like the other person speaking, we've also recently moved to a 4-day week, paying for a 5, and that was a massive company. There's only about 18 of us, but company-wide collaboration process that we went through to decide if it was going to be right for us, and everyone fed into how it was going to work and what it was going to be like. And it was a really interesting process to see how that worked. And we've been doing it for 2 years now. We check in with each other every month to make sure that it's working for us, because we're using it as a wellbeing tool. And just really focusing on giving back that time on the Friday. And we give our information free out into the community. So we share information free with the community on how to make their homes warmer, drier and healthier and more efficient. So that's our service that is gifted to anyone in the community, regardless of their income level. We mostly support people in low income communities, but if someone from a high income community wanted to come and get our advice on how to support their home to be sustainable and energy efficient and fit for future, then we give that information away for free. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be connected in with this group as well as the Aotearoa WEAll group. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joe, for that. That's amazing. And please do share a link to your company as well. And yeah, thanks for joining from across the way in Aotearoa. Okay, so moving on. Regulation, of course, it's never the most exciting thing, and people usually have a bit of a visceral reaction against it. But really, for the wellbeing economy, we're here to tell you it's a good news story. And here are just a handful of examples of how regulation is helping to close the gap between really our expectations on how businesses should behave in society, and what they are currently doing. So I think in particular to just talk briefly about the Task Force on Inequality and Social Related Financial Disclosures. So this is a global task force. They've just put out their beta version of a framework on the disclosure requirements or recommendations for that. And this task force is following in the footsteps on the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, who created a framework that was absorbed by the International Sustainability Standards Board and became mandatory for really large organisations in Australia to report on in the beginning of last year. And by 2028, that will be mandatory across all organisations. So it's really expected, and that the social related financial disclosures will follow in that footsteps. To the extent that government has said their approach towards this is a climate first but not only approach to sustainability standards reporting. So I guess all of that to say is, everyone on the call here, we're being proactive. We see the value in adopting this way of thinking, but businesses that refuse to will soon have to take notice and start to think about this. And I think the framework is really exciting to read through, just how the scope of how they've really conceived, I guess, inequality and social issues, and really got businesses to think about the interconnectedness of business and nature and people, and also think beyond day-to-day operations, but what's the impact medium and long term, and also how is a business impacting at a systems level. So it's asking a lot from people to report on, but it's exactly what we want to see. So it's very exciting. Lovely. Dan.
So, and I mean, like I think the other piece about the regulation, just quickly, is even if an organization isn't mandated to do it, like for the sustainability reporting standards, for example, are like 100 million annual revenue or above, what we're already seeing is the flow down the supply chain of the organizations that are being asked for the information that the reporting entities need. And so that in and of itself is creating a lot of positive behavioral change, and we expect that to continue. In terms of wrapping things up, so I mean, like as we said at the top, we do believe we're in a unique time in history. We have one system ending, we have another one emerging. There's a crucial transition to navigate between them, which we call the two-loop model. And by being on today's call, we know that this is something that you're feeling as well. The choices that you make as business leaders are already dictating how the design of this transition takes shape inside your businesses and along the value chains that we were just talking about. So we really do invite you to find your role in this movement for economic systems change in order to create the conditions that will benefit the many. So please become a member of Wellbeing Economy Alliance Australia. Follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter, send us an email. As you can see, just by the amazing examples that we've already had today, there is just such a wealth of experience already in this community, and yeah, we want to grow that rapidly. Georgie, back to you.
Thank you, Dan. And yeah, in particular for this sort of series of webinars we'd love to do, if you want to contribute or you've got ideas, reach out. That we really love people to be part of that. Thank you. All right. So in closing out, we just wanted to take a moment to do a little provocation. So we've been talking about wellbeing economy and systems change, and a lot of us, if not all, are systems thinkers, and that of course can be really daunting and overwhelming, and as individuals we can feel quite powerless trying to affect the system change. But I think there is something really powerful we can do. And that's about really kind of checking out of the matrix and recognizing that whether consciously or unconsciously, we're operating in a way or living lives where we've let the system, the current economy, capitalism, define what success is for us. So perhaps you've had in your life where you've achieved some success, you've got that pay rise, or you've got a promotion, and yet you feel maybe a little empty, not quite satisfied. You quite quickly turn to what's next, and that's not quite enough, I want more. And really that's no coincidence. That's because it's a product of capitalism that relentlessly pursues this feeling of lack. But when will enough ever be enough? And we know that, wealth creation, wealth income is never going to be everything to satisfy us. We are living, breathing ecosystems. We are heart, body, and mind. So what we can do is to kind of disconnect from that and just start by going, well, what would success look like if the current economy didn't have a hand in defining that? And borrowing from this beautiful recent book by the author Kemi Nekvapil called Grounded Success, Kemi offers these questions to help you identify and start to define what that might look like for you. She asks, what are your core values and beliefs, and what would success look like aligned to these values? So perhaps after that could just be something you pause on, because I think if we really want to see this change at the system level, it starts with us as individuals. Oh, sorry. So just in final, we've popped all our details there, but feel free to connect via that general email. We'll get that at WEAll Australia, or if you'd like to reach out to either of us directly, you're more than welcome to, and we'd love to hear from you. Yeah. I think if there's any final questions, we've got a few moments, but otherwise that concludes the agenda as well. Thanks everyone for your really great engagement and contributions too. Look forward to hearing from all of you in the future.
Absolutely. That was a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.